there are things known, and there are things unknown, and in between are the doors of perception, and the doorways of perception are now open. All around us, there exists worlds of the seen and the unseen, in a universe of endless possibilities. We should never limit ourselves to a single perspective. For in order to hunt the shadows and become true explorers of the unknown and the unexplained, we must sometimes take a paranormal point of view.
Good evening out there in podcast land. Hello, this is Dennis Carroll, your host for another episode of Paranormal Point of View. I hope you have all had a great week. We have here at Hunting the Shadows. They had a great show Monday night with our good friend Gerald Fountain, The Road Less Traveled. Another great show with our other friend Jessica Jones, the Cryptid Hunters, Wednesday night. I hope if you didn't get a chance to see either one of these shows, please check them out. The one I was going to do with Chantel has been rescheduled, okay, for that'll be next week, The Agents of Evil on Aquarius Rising. And please check that out as well. I've got some more lined up in the future. Hopefully our good friend Brian Minnick will be back from Strange Montauk with us next week, I hope. We're setting that up. And we've got some interesting times ahead of us, folks. Definitely. Want to welcome everybody into the chat room, the grotto, as I call it. We're slowly gathering in the grotto. Buckle up and get ready for the rides, Buttercup. It's going to be another strange trip here tonight on Paranormal Point of View. Welcome aboard, everyone. Slowly checking in here. And I hope you had a great week and absolutely had a great show with Jessica the other day, too. If you didn't check that about Annabelle, the cursed doll, check it out. That was this past Wednesday. If you missed it, you missed a good one. So you need to go back and check that out. And she was also our guest Wednesday night. So check that out as well. And tonight we're going to get into some unusual ground. I've got a piece of equipment I'm going to show you. And we're going to talk a little bit about some equipment that people we use out in the field and stuff like that. We're also going to talk about a couple of movies that I've been reviewing here recently. And one of those is a TV series. We're going to talk about that. Got a movie. Hopefully, we will get my good friend Gerald to put up on his channel, movie channel. We're going to talk about it. And it's an oldie but a goodie, a real good one. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk a little bit about genetics. What's going on with that? They're talking about cloning human sperm cells and eggs to create, genetically modified people. It sounds like an episode of Star Trek. As a matter of fact, there was an episode of Star Trek on that very same thing, growing and making superhuman people by manipulating the stuff. And this is becoming fact, no longer fiction, folks. And that's the scary part of it. Eugenics is what it's called, and it never was good. As a matter of fact, it was, sponsored by the Nazis back in World War II, and it began a little bit before then. Matter of fact, eugenics, the founding of eugenics was actually created by the woman who founded Planned Parenthood, by the way. Believe that or not, that is true. You can go back and check her out. She is actually the one who began eugenics, designing children, folks. Think about that. Designer children. You can have whatever sex you want. You can have them to have whatever color eyes, hair, whatever color you want them to be, whatever qualities you want them to have, if you want them to be psychic. The list goes on and on. This is scary, folks. And then on top of this, China has just come out saying that they're trying to hybridize actual parts of the tardigrades. Now, I'll tell you what tardigrades are in a few moments. With human DNA, that would enable sort of a super soldier kind of thing. And we've talked about the super soldiers before. We're going to talk about some of that tonight as well. This stuff is real. It's not made up. It's ongoing and happening this very moment. Absolutely. Want to welcome Shiro in out there. Hello, Shiro, Wizard Moon, and let's see what we got. Blue Eyed Bandit is in the house. All right, and Young 13 is here. All right, hello, Roger Blair. My brother Midwest Night Watcher is in the house. He and I are planning a great show for Monday night. You don't want to miss it. Another episode of Honey of The Road Less Traveled and all that. Hello, Daddy. Thank you, dear, for that super sticker. Fantastic. Great way to start the show. Thank you. I appreciate that very much. Appreciate it so much. Thank you. It's people like you that help support the show, okay? And financially, and we do have overhead costs, and I want to thank you for doing that. Absolutely. It's very good, very nice of you. Thank you so much. And put that up for well, let me. There we go. Finally got it up on the screen. Okay. Thank you so much. Done it. That was very good. Very kind. But we're slowly gathering here in the grotto and getting ready to start the show. We've got a lot of interesting things we're going to talk about tonight. And I've even got some stories for you tonight. A couple of stories I'm going to share with you. One I think we will find very interesting. I've been telling a lot about dogman and werewolf stories, so I've got another one of those for you tonight. So an actual case, but it illustrates what cryptids can do to you, how they can affect your life. That's why this show tonight is called the Cryptid Effect, or Bigfoot Ate My Lunch. That's the way these things go. They can truly affect you in more ways than you possibly understand sometimes, even to the point where it will ruin your life. Absolutely. That happens too with people. Absolutely. We're going to talk about that a little bit tonight too. So we've got a lot of ground to cover coming up. Nobody talk about cat men suspect. What's up with that? Well, there have been a lot. I have a story actually. I'm going to tell about a skinwalker cat man. So hang on for that. M13 is coming up, and it illustrates what skinwalkers are not just stuck on wolves and ravens and weird looking monsters. They do other things as well. And this is I call it the Skinwalker Panther Man. So hang in there for that one. It's coming up just a little while here, okay? But I'm glad you brought that up with the cat. Cat men and cat women are cited a lot, more so than that. But nobody wants to talk much about them, unfortunately. But they are an actual cryptid, and I do have a section in my book about them. My upcoming book, I'm going to be talking about the cat people. I don't know, and Gerald, I'm sure, is familiar with this very old movie, Curse of the Cat People. Or the Cat People with that. There were 3 movies made on that, actually. Original movies. It was The Cat People, Curse of the Cat People, and I think there was another one that didn't have that in its title. But anyway, that was a great movie. She supposedly is it's a Slovakian or a Ukrainian type, a legend of women. They were witches that could turn into large black panthers or large black leopards. And we of course, have that same very folklore of witches being able to do that in the Appalachians as well. I've done a lot of very deep research into this because my family had a run-in with something like that similar years ago. If you want me to, I will tell you that story tonight as well. You saw one of them in the theaters. Yeah, they are very good. It was that first one was very good, very well done. Cat People, because it had some really spooky moments. It was a great movie, very suspenseful movie. The curse consume her and turn her into darkness in many ways. Uh, uh, Fascinating movie, Gerald. That would be a great movie for you to run if you haven't run it in the past or run it over again. That is a great movie for people who enjoy that, but badly to her. I think, her boyfriend like bought her a canary and the cat was bad. Then. But the cat people was great. I think he's wild. Yes, you good. But there's a legend in the Ukraine and Russia and parts like that of these women who are cursed. I think it was one certain village, and I cannot remember the name of it, where these women were cursed with being turning into cats. And when they became cats, they became very diabolical, demonic type beings. They would go out and devour people and play with them until they killed them. Horrible torture that they would do on these people because they were cats. They remade the movie years ago. They remade Cat People, but it was not as good as the original. The original, I think, was made back in the 50s, if I'm not mistaken. Great movie. Check it out if you ever get a chance. Cat People. And then the second movie was really good. It's about the little girl that's associated or connected with the cat people. That's a great movie too, although it's got a slightly different subject matter. And it looks at all this from a little girl's point of view. Great movie too, by the way. I love it. It's one of my favorites. Curse of the Cat People. So check it out. But yeah, there are reports of cat people being seen. And of course, this is related to skinwalkers and witches, okay, in that respect. I'm roboting. Oh, Lord. But anyway. I'm checking out some of your comments here. But we've got a good bit to talk about tonight, so let's get to it, eh? Some other people will have to catch up with us later on. But that thing about the eugenics, that's very interesting. Designer children. Huh? You can go in, and of course, this would be a big help. Supposedly, the same sex couples that can't have a child, they can order one. So you could go into these clinics and say, I want such and such, I want a son or a daughter that looks like this, or I like it's got an IQ of this and all that. You can design these folks. They're designable. And the question still remains, though, if you make people like this, and this is very much like the Star Trek episode with Khan. Remember that? Khan was a genetically modified human being. That's what it's called, genetically modified human being. And they were grown in laboratories. They don't have parents like you and I have. They are not born from a woman as you and I were, because we're human. That's why we have a belly button. These people wouldn't need a belly button. They don't have one. They're genetically modified. They're grown in a laboratory and designed the way you want them to be. They can have high IQs. They can be super strong. They can use the pineal gland and become psychic to a certain degree. They can do all kinds of creepy, crazy stuff. This is part of the super soldier program we've talked about before in the past. Jessica and I have both done a lot of stories on this, and it is fascinating. And like I have said and stated many times in the past, it's not over. The experiment is still ongoing. They've never stopped trying to genetically modify people to the way they want them to be, and that includes hybridization. And that's going on with the Chinese. And they are using tardigrades. Now, tardigrades are these very tiny microscopic little animals that it can exist in radiation, in the cold of space, and in freezing, extreme freezing temperatures. They can resist radiation. And if you could genetically modify someone with the attributes of the tardigrades, then you would have a super soldier, definitely. You would have someone who could survive in deep space, they could survive extreme weather and atmospheric conditions. You could have someone that would be super strong. You would have someone who would be super resilient to disease, pain, hot and cold, and emotions. You would have the perfect, think about it, you would have the perfect super soldier. And the Chinese have openly working on this right now as we speak. What if one day we have to face a 10 million strong Chinese army made of these tardigrades and people? That's not a good thought when you think about it. You're coming up against a 10 or 20 million soldier army of super soldiers. It would wipe you out in a jiffy. It would not be good. But that is what we're looking at. When you genetically modify people, eugenics, you can say, hey, we don't want this color people anymore, or we don't want these kind of people anymore. That's not popular anymore. They put that on further down the list. It would be like baby names. Certain baby names are not popular anymore. They've fallen out of use. They're put down on the list. What if certain kinds of people are not popular anymore? Are they put on the list and put further down the list, or I like to call it the old Southern term, on the back burner? When you put them on the back burner, they're forgotten, they're pushed away, they don't want them. Even dog breeds are like this. There's certain breeds of dogs that are no longer popular. What's going on with this, folks? They're picking out what they want. This is eugenics, and it is evil, extreme, extreme evil. Because you are practicing a biogenetically form of bigotry here. That's what people that have no defects or your race anymore. You're picking out what you want racially, mentally, psychically, strength wise, IQ wise. The list goes on and on and on. You're picking out things to do to people. You're creating little Frankensteins. That is never good, folks, when you start playing God. And that, I've talked about this before many times, the God game that these people are playing. And they're doing that with your weather. They're doing it with your food. They're doing it with the very atmosphere that you breathe, you wear, the information that you hear. All of this is being modified for one purpose and one purpose only, to completely 100% control you and take away your. Green sent me a thing the other day, yesterday, talking about, and I've talked about this before on past shows, turning you into part of the technology, making an antenna out of you. They're going to take your humanity away from you, folks. Why are they going to take you? Why are they dehumanizing you? I'll tell you why. Because once they dehumanize you, you will no longer have a soul. You will lose your soul. You know, a preacher once told me one thing. Listen to this. That's very true. If the devil can't steal your soul, he will destroy it. That's just as good to him as stealing it. Makes sense when you think about it. This is what your enemy will do to you. This is what he has in his plans in store for you. I've talked about the agenda of the fallen angels in many, many shows. This is true and real stuff here, folks. I got a show coming up very soon on Squatch and Holler, and another one that we're doing. I'm going to be talking about giants and the Nephilim and stuff like. Well, this needs to be talked about because this is real stuff. Okay. And let me say one more thing. There's an enemy rising up in the darkness that is seeking to destroy the Holy Bible. Please be aware of that. Be very careful what you hear when somebody comes up and says, this needs to be in the Bible, that needs to be in the Bible. These are real enemies of the Word of God, folks. They are playing an enemy thing going on, whether they realize it or not. They are trying to destroy the Word of God. Did you want to be on the side of people that are doing that? I would advise you not to. Definitely not. So this goes across all moral compasses and circles. It goes across all social convention. It goes across everything, religion, everything that we hold most dear in our society and our world. This eugenics is the last great evil, turning mankind into what he wants us to be, not the will of our Creator. Do you not understand? These people are going against the will of God, what He set up. They are enemies of that. They are dire, evil, and dreadful enemies of that. Not only enemies of God and of you and me. That's what this is all about. Like the late Pope modifying the Lord's Prayer. Absolutely. There's a warning in the Bible. It says not to take away one single word or add to this, or you will have judgment added to you. That's a warning, a very distinct warning. You don't mess with the Word of God and get away with it. And you don't mess with the creation of God and get away with it. I've talked about this many times before in the past. What does the Bible say? He shall destroy them that destroy the earth. Do you hear that? That's what the Bible says. He will destroy them that destroy the earth. And when you go against light, love, goodness, and righteousness and all this stuff, when you go against what's good in this whole universe and this world, you are trying to destroy it. Point blank, you are out for its destruction. You're one of the bad guys. I hate to tell you that. Wake up. Wake up. You're on the wrong side of the bed here. You're on the wrong side. Point blank. I had to tell you that. I'm not going to pull punches on you. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm not going to liven it up for you so you can swallow it a little bit easier. I'm telling you the truth. You're either wrong or you're right. There's no excuse. Did you hear what I just said? You're either wrong or you're right. There's no excuse. And these people doing this stuff are not right, people. That's right. Love is God's creation. He is love. The greatest love that mankind has ever known. Mankind cannot equal the love of God. We can't do it. One day we will. One day we will be part of that for sure, but right now we can't. We can't love on the scale that God can. It goes beyond all human understanding. But let me get back to this. If you are either on one side of the fence or the other, either pushing for the good or you're pushing for the bad. There's no other way to push here, folks. There's no way to push. There's only two ways. That's it. You're pushing for the bad or you're pushing for the good. What side are you on? You better wake up. You better wake up, folks. It's time to wake up and see what's really going on around you. Okay? This stuff with this genetics and modification of people and doing these things is all part of that evil, insidious, low down, and mean-spirited God plan that they're playing with. That's what they are. They want to be gods. I tell you what, in my book, they're not fit to be gods over a worm, much less people. Okay? I'll say that for them. But that's what they want to be. They want to be gods. Yes, there's a lot going on. Because they're going to manipulate. They're going to turn you into part of the technology. Signals are going to go through you and bounce off of you just like an antenna. They're going to make a 5G. That's what 6G is supposed to be about next generation. They'll make an antenna out of you. You're going to be part of the technology. Right now, when you pick up a cell phone and carry it around with you all day, it's most constantly in. This is in your hand more than anything else all day long. Think about it, okay? Your eyes are looking at this. Your brain is interacting with this on a regular basis. You are already part of the technology. You're just not bio yet, but you're getting there. You will be bio very soon because that's what the plans they have for you. And one day you're not going to need a cell phone. You will be the cell phone. Do you understand what I'm saying here? One day you won't carry that cell phone around anymore. You won't have to carry a set of keys or driver's license or any kind of ID. You won't carry those in your pocket no more. You will be that. They will scan that chip in you and read all of this. They will read your eye print and your hand prints. They already have phones. I activate my phone with a fingerprint. It's here, folks. Here and now. And it's going to be a big part of your life very soon. I mean, very, very, very soon. You will be assimilated into the technology. You and you alone, you will be assimilated. You will become part of the technology. What if cell phones emitted free instead of indigenous radiation? Who knows what they may do in the future, M13? They've got plans to make you part of that. You're going to be the cell phone. Don't you understand? Your body is going to be the cell phone. You're going to be able to read a screen built in on your arm or the back of your hand or something like that. You'll be able to punch in the numbers you want or even talk to it and get it to do what you want. Just like they do on Star Trek when they touch the communicator. They talk to the man. They're hooked up into the mainline computer. That's what they're going to hook you into. You not understand. The world consciousness of computers is going to combine one day. You're going to have that super computer that you hear so much about. Okay, it's gonna be a supercomputer. And it's gonna be linked up in a neural link of the whole worldwide system, and it will assimilate you into that. You will be hooked up to that computer from the cradle to the grave. That's going to know you. It's going to know where you're at 24/7, 365. It's going to know what your vitals are, whether your heart's beating, where your heart is beating at, how it's beating. It can be modified, how it can be modified to beat. The list goes on and on and on. This is scary. This is the scariest thing. Let me tell you this. This is the scariest thing humanity has ever faced in our history. And it's we're facing it right now. And then you and your wife or your husband are going to be able to walk into a clinic and order what kind of baby you want. And by the way, robots will raise it for you. You won't have to worry about it. Robots in the house will take care of it. They'll raise that child. It'll imprint that child. They'll call it imprintation. It'll imprint its intellect into it, telling it what it needs to know, making it learn what it needs to do, different languages that it wants to, whatever the situation. They're going to be hooked up to the mainline computer. That quantum computer that's going to rule the world, folks. That's the beast. That's the image of the beast. You understand? Are you beginning to understand now? What have I said about him? He's not just a man. He's not a man anyway. He's a supernatural being. He is an evil incarnate. That's what he is. But he's going to have a system. And that system is neural linked by a world computer. That's what's coming. Do you understand? That's what and you're going to be part of it. Technology is only as good as the person. And that's why this is an evil technology. You've heard me talk before in the past about shadow science. Shadow science was given to us by fallen angels, and that's exactly what you're seeing here, people. That's exactly what's happening. Dr. Frankenstein's everywhere. He is with us. He never died. He's only coming back big and strong like never before. I'm a monster hunter from way back, and I'm going to talk tonight about hunting some monsters, okay? But I want to tell you something. The biggest monster of all, folks, the one you got to really worry about ain't Bigfoot or Dogman. It ain't the chupacabra, and it ain't dragons, or nothing like that. You better be worrying about people, because mankind is the biggest monster of all. And we're creating that monster. We are part of the creation of that monster. And that monster, just like with Frankenstein, guess what it's going to do? That monster is going to turn on us. We're creating a system that will pale, that Frankenstein would pale in comparison to. We're creating a system for that one wicked and evil, insidious man to come in and, boom, take control immediately and make it his system. And you will be part of that. Don't you understand? You'll be part of that system. You already are part of the system. You get up, you go to work, you pay taxes, you come home and do the same thing all over again the next day, and every day, day after day after day after day. Never questioning or wondering why you are a slave to the system that you are trapped in. The matrix that you are trapped in is here and now with us. That's the system, and it belongs to one person, Lucifer. But you are slaves to it. He has made sure that you are slaves. You are bound and shackled by spiritual and physical chains to this system. And the more they can shackle you, the more chains they can throw on you. They will. That's the way they operate. And that's what you got to understand is happening in this very world around you right now, tonight, right here. Right here now, not tomorrow, not a couple of years from now, not 2026. No, right now. China's doing it. You know, we're doing it. Every nation, every large government on this planet is doing this. This genetically modified people and beings that they're trying to create. But God, game goes on. And will never stop till the real God of this universe puts a stop to it. He's the only one. He's the only one that can stop this stuff. And that's all it's going to take. That's what it's going to take. Well, we got to understand that this is real stuff that's going on. So, yeah, they can create the sperm they want, the cell they want, genetically modify it the way they want, and bring forth life in the laboratory. They don't need sex anymore. You don't need sex anymore. That will be a thing of the past. Self-gratification will be left up to robots. You understand what I'm getting at here, folks? You're looking at a cold, desolate, emotionless world without a heart, without a soul to it anymore. That's the world that's coming. I see it coming down the line. Just it's not on the horizon. It's on the road headed straight for us. Now we better wake up. It's going to be too late. It's almost too late now. It's really almost too late now. It will take a great social awakening the world has never seen before for people to truly wake up to what's going on in this world. I hope it happens, but I have my doubts. You know why? We are sheeple being led to the slaughter. You know what? I saw a cartoon the other day about a bunch of sheep being led into being slaughtered. You showed the blades getting ready to cut the heads off. One sheep turns to the other and says, "Where are we going?" And the other one says, "I don't know, but I hope it's fun." That's us, folks. That's why they push the abortion unless the God's given. So absolutely, they're enemies of that. Do you not understand? They're enemies of God, goodness, light, truth, justice, and the human soul. They're enemies of it. And if they can't take your soul, my friends, they will destroy it. If they can, they will. I'm not preaching a sermon tonight. I'm just telling you, I'm laying out the facts for you. Okay? I want you to know. And when you look back in the rest of your life, one day you're gonna say, well, by gosh, Dennis was right. He was honest about it. It ain't gonna probably do you any good to know that. But at least you'll say I was right about it. I was honest about it. I am being honest with you about it. I'm not making this stuff up. This is not science fiction anymore. 1984 is come and gone, but it's here with us, and it'll never leave. But that's what's happening. That is exactly what's going on. I just want you to know. I want you to be aware of that, okay? You can always come to hunting the shadows and paranormal point of view for the truth, okay? Because that's all we want to deal with. We want to deal with the real stuff that's going on in this world. Threat to your life and liberty. And those two things go together, folks. Life and liberty. Liberty and life. You can't really have one without the other. You definitely can't. Well, you certainly wouldn't want one without the other. Absolutely. And God has given you liberty. Your God creator has given you life and liberty. Don't let anyone take that away from you. It doesn't belong to them. It's yours. Absolutely. But we got to remember that's what's going on. That's what's going on right now. I'm not making any of that up. But anyway, I want to turn now to I got a little piece of equipment I wanted to show you. It's one of my favorites here. I hope I can show it to you pretty good on the thing here tonight. But it is get a shot of it. It is a flashlight. But this is an unusual flashlight. It's one of the ones I use definitely for investigative and cryptid research and all that. And I'll show you some of the things that do it. It actually opens out until you get to phone trying to ring on me. You get to you can turn this on and you've got a big light here. Light at the end is sort of like a flashlight, okay? And then you got a knob down here that will actually turn this on. This will knock your eyes out. It is very bright, and it is a bar light that you have on this. And all of this is in this little package here. And like I say, on the end, you've got your little flashlight. Then you got the big one that really lights a room up for you, or a piece of the forest wherever you're at. It really does. And on this end, it's got a very large magnet. You can stick this baby to anything that's metal. It'll stick on there. Very neat. And it's also got a hanger that you can hang it if you need to. You can hang it with this. And like I say, it is adjustable. And it has a you can actually swivel this in, and you can actually mount this to a tripod if you want to. So it works very well that way. If you wanted to take it camping or what, it will modify and you can adjust it to a tripod. And all around, it is one of the best little flashlights and very light. You will not know this is in your backpack. Trust me. Very light, and it is it is rechargeable. You get a charger with it. You can wall charge it, recharge it. And also, you can also, if you've got a little power bank, like you recharge your phone with, you can recharge this with it as well. Great little light. I suggest you pick one up there on Amazon. And they're called stick lights, okay? And like I say, just look for them. They look like this. You can open them up, like I say, all the way. And believe me, that light right here is light. I mean, it is, you see how bright this is. It is. It will knock your eyes out. It is very bright. But like I say, great if you're in the woods or in a room or whatever the situation. But now, if you don't need that much light, it's got a button and you got the little flashlight on the end, which is a good little flashlight too. It's very strong and all that. But listen, it's not, like those super flashlights you see, knocks your eyes out. It's not going to do that. And I'll tell you what's good about that. You don't want one of those super flashlights because they are a monster to keep charged. Okay, this baby here will go hours and hours without you needing anything. It's not burning up power that much, but it's giving you enough light that you can work with or see with, whatever the situation needs to be, and look for footprints on the ground, whatever the situation. This is a great so check it out. It's on Amazon. Okay, I highly recommend it. And I will try to find out the exact name for it, and I will have it in the we'll put up in the future. We will put up the link on Amazon to it, okay, and let you try it out. Thinking of all lost items you can find in your car. Yeah, this baby will do it. And like I said, you can stick this on the hood of your car while you're working on it, or stick it, wherever there's metal, you can stick it. It's got a great magnet. And of course, the magnet is good for picking up. It's like if you drop something on the ground, you drop, a fork or anything, you can pick it up with this magnet. It's got a great magnet on the end of it. It is really handy little item to have. I keep it in my backpack. I've got two of them, as a matter of fact. I keep one by the bed, and I keep the other one in my backpack. I got a backup. So I highly, highly recommend this out there if you're going to do any kind of in-field research here. Okay, you definitely need that little baby with you. And like I say, it's easy to operate, easy to maintain, fairly waterproof. I'm not going to say you can swim under the water 20 feet down with it. I'm not going to say that, but it's fairly waterproof. You don't have to worry about getting in the rain or anything, So check it out if you get a chance on that. It's a wand light, W-A-N-D, wand. But I'll find out the exact link for that. For anybody interested parties, just email me or ask me at DennisWCarroll.com. Quarter dropped in the dashboard, yeah. And I don't know if it'll pick up quarters. There's not much metal left in it, but it might. I don't know. Anyway, you definitely can pick up, pins or anything you drop with this baby. Absolutely. But check it out. I highly recommend it. And I will be showing in the future. I'll show some other some instruments and mechanical technical stuff that are useful. I tell you, the two things that hold the criteria for me, it's got to be useful and it's got to be light. I don't hate heavy stuff. You don't want anything bogging you down, especially if you're gonna carry it in your your to-go bag, or you're gonna carry it in your backpack and all that. You don't want something heavy, okay? You want something light, and this baby really does a job in that respect. Okay, so go check it out if you're looking for a good quality light. And like I say, it's not going to cost you an arm and a leg either. So that's the good part about it. That's another requirement of mine. It's got to be affordable, because I am on a very, very tight budget myself. I know how that can be, and you got to find stuff that's affordable to you for your budget. Absolutely. But I just wanted to share that with you. And got a couple of stories now. I wanted to get to run past you here. I know you're interested in hearing some of my cases. And tripod connection sounds good. Yeah, like I said, you can put this baby on a tripod and it swivels. And so you could take it camping, take your short tripod camping with you. Now, I want to tell you this right quick. You can buy those tripod lights that you see the other fancy campers having those tripod lights. You know how much those things are? Like $160. I don't know about you, but that's just ridiculous. 160 bucks for a flashlight on a tripod. You can do that with this very cheap. Don't go out and buy one of those. That's $169. I looked those up today. I saw a camper's guy taking a hike using one of these. He sets it up. I said, my gosh, $169 for that? I mean, come on. So anyway, you could like for $30, you could fix this thing up to do the same thing. Probably better than the one he's got for $169. That's crazy. But anyway, you can be. You got something we got to remember, okay? We're going to have to start being, like you heard me say before, don't be scared, be smart. We're going to have to be real smart about this stuff. We need to be innovative as much as possible. We need to make things, we need to innovate with the things we're doing because it's just great. Prices are getting ridiculously out of hand, okay? And we need to learn how to cook and fix stuff for ourselves and not depend on all these things because they are taking us to the cleaners and laughing about us behind our backs, okay? They are sticking it to us because we're paying for it. And no, we need to quit being sheeple, folks, okay? We need to quit being sheeple and eat anything they throw in the trough for us, okay? We need to be innovative. We need to start figuring out ways to do things cheaper and better and healthier and smarter than what they're doing. They're trying to put us in a mold, and we need to break that mold. Okay, we don't need to get in that rut that they want to keep us in. A rut ain't nothing, my friends, but a ditch. And I don't know about you, but I want to stay on the road and out of the ditch. Okay, absolutely. And that's where they want you. They want you in that ditch. Well, we got to be smart. We got to be smart about it. That's what we got to be. Hell, muchada. How you doing? But yeah, we got to be smart. We got to be smart in the future on these things. By the way, you can get a tripod for like $10. It will fit this thing on. You got your own pole light, a whole lot cheaper than $169. Trust me. But anyway, we get to story time now here in a few minutes. But I just wanted to stop and pause. Anybody got any questions on that or anything you want to say about that? Work smarter, not harder. That's right. I'm all for that. There's always a easy way and a hard way to do things. I'd rather do it the easy way. How about you? Anytime. Anyway, I got a couple of stories I want to share with you tonight. One that happened to me, but there's another one that did not happen to me that I know about. And it kind of illustrates what I've talked about before. People who have paranormal encounters of any kind, whether they be cryptid, spiritual, earth mystery, whatever it may be, okay? There's something very interesting you need to know. These things can affect you in ways you never dreamt of, okay? A lot of people say, oh, I came away knowing something, I came away understanding something or whatever. That's good. That's always a good thing. If you have a bad experience, at least maybe you can get something good out of it. It's not a completely lost situation. Bad things happen to good people. It happens, folks. It happens to everybody. Bad things happen to all of us. It rains on the just and the unjust alike. Okay. But sometimes it's a downpour. Definitely. Sometimes you get real wet and your umbrella don't work. Okay. But that's beside the point. We got to understand that these things happen sometimes for a reason. maybe to teach us a lesson. Maybe that's something that we need to understand about it. Maybe it's another wrinkle in our horn, another pay life in our book of life. It's something that we need to know sometimes. It's a test. Sometimes, sure, we're tested. We're tested by a lot of people blame God for testing us, but I believe life itself tests us in many ways. And fate definitely does. It does test us. And the main thing we need to focus on is not the test, but winning the test or coming out on top of the test. Okay, that's what we need to really work on. Is getting through the test. It's just like a test you took at school. You studied for it, you crammed for it, you prayed about it, you hoped you were going to ace that test. But you had to ace it, and that's what happens with tests. You need to ace them as much as possible. And I think the tests of life are that way as well. But sometimes we can take something good out of something that bad happened. I tell you a quick story. You can have something bad happen, but meet somebody really nice and good that offers you help. That's a good thing. You're coming out of that with a good thing and not a bad thing. So it's not all bad. It's not all a lost cause. Okay. You can come out with something good sometimes out of something bad. But then there are other instances where it's so bad that nothing good comes out of it. That happens too. Okay, that happens a lot more, probably likely more than the other one. But it happens. Okay, and we got to understand that's part of life as well. That's probably part of the test. But here's something else we need to understand: is how does it affect us in the long run? And I've known a lot of people over the years, in deep into paranormal investigations of all types, and I have seen how it affects people sometimes. I have seen how it affects their lives and their outlook on life itself. When I had, just like when I first had my dramatic sighting of Bigfoot, met the guy face to face, eye to eye. I came away with a question that still haunts me to this day. So it affected me that way. And that question is, if this is real, if this exists, what else is out there? You know? That's the question that haunts me still to this day. I want to find out more. But some people, it scares them so bad. It rocks their boat of belief so badly that they shy away from it. They don't want to know. They want to turn away from it. They will hide behind disbelief. They will hide behind derision. They will try to deride it, make fun of it, or make fun of other people like that. Sometimes they're hiding the fact that they have experienced that and they really believe it, but they don't admit it. People are funny that way. You got to be almost a psychoanalyst to understand these people. Okay, that's just the way humanity is, and that's why we need to study how and why people do certain things. Okay, we need to understand that. There's something else we need to understand in life, definitely. And it's just like our dreams can reveal things to us. So can other people as well. And so can certain situations. And some people come away with it with a good thing. They say, "Oh, I want to know more. This is me, okay? I want to know more about it. I want to understand it. I want to see. I need to see it again. I want to know more about it. That's me. I had a lot of people over years. Didn't you run when you saw Bigfoot? Yeah, I ran to him. I ran towards him. I wanted to see more of him. I wasn't running away. I wasn't scared. I wanted to experience it more. That's the way some people look at stuff, but then other people have a different way of looking at things. We have to understand those people too. Maybe they're scared. Maybe they're the ones that, instead of fighting, they flee, they run. They can't handle it. I have seen a lot of people that can't handle stuff emotionally like that. They're weaker in those respects. You got to understand where these people are coming from too. And also, certain experiences, I think, though, leave not only an effect upon us spiritually, mentally, and physically, as emotionally, but they can also, I think, affect us in future events and future times. It's something that we learn and that we never get past it. We can't get over it. We can't get around it. It's going to always be with us. Some people can take that and make something good out of it, but some people they have a problem with it. And that's the story I'm going to tell you about tonight. What some of these things can do. If Bigfoot steals your lunch tomorrow, you can make a funny joke about it, or it can ruin your life. That's the options you have. Okay, you got a lot of options with this. If Bigfoot, the good thing you got to look at, Bigfoot ate your lunch and not you. Okay, that's a good thing to think about. Okay, but some people don't see it that way. All they can see is the fact that Bigfoot ate their lunch. And what really could really bother some of these people is that it was Bigfoot that did it. You see where I'm getting at here, don't you? How this affects people and their outlook on things. And it can affect some people very, very badly. And that's the story I'm going to relate to you tonight. The last time I've been in jail was for that. That's a good thing. Violence never solves anything, unfortunately. Sometimes it creates more problems. Bring an extra lunch. I would advise it. One for you and one for Bigfoot. And then everybody's happy, right? That's kind of like Yogi Bear. He used to go around stealing all the picnic baskets. He wasn't the average bear, though, by the way. Anyway, we got to understand, though, how things like this can affect some people. Now, the story I'm about to tell you is true and really happened. And it concerns two people, a man and a woman. Now, the young lady, we'll call her Sally, okay? And her boyfriend, we'll call him Jake. All right? Sally and Jake were in love. They had been in love since high school, was before junior high, actually, when they met each other. But they began to date in high school and had plans for the future. And Sally wanted to her ambition was to become a nurse. So Sally, as soon as she left high school, or right before she was, so she started in taking nursing class. And she it was coming up on a week of her finals. She had to really ace those finals, okay? And to get it to become a nurse, her lifelong ambition. And then she and Jake had planned to marry and raise a family, and she would be the nurse in the family. That's their plans. Sometimes, though, fate doesn't go along with a lot of your plans. But anyway, the whole story begins late one night when Sally was coming back home. Now, Sally lived in it wasn't a really isolated farm, but it was a good ways away from other neighbors. And her dad and her mom had lived on this farm for a long time. She was actually born there on this farm. She was coming back one night from a taco run. She had got some tacos, or I think she had stayed there to eat some tacos and was on her way back home. And she saw something in the headlights cross the road in front of her. There was a long driveway that she had to go down to get back to the farm. And something's very large and very black, like crossed right in front of her very quickly. And she said, honest to God, they looked like a big shaggy black dog of some sort. And it startled her, but she just thought it was some of the animals around the farm there, some of the animals that hung around, maybe. It certainly wasn't a coyote. It was much, much bigger than that. And they didn't have wolves, so she thought. Anyway, she got home and it was kind of late at night. She was letting herself in the house and she heard something in the bushes. And it was like something walking, crunching through the bushes. And she got to look and said, what is that? It's like, she had the feeling that something was watching her very intently. And she could see out in the darkness two amber colored eyes in the trees, like watching her. And they were, because she knew they would, kind of blink every now and then. She noticed that. And this kind of gave her the heebie-jeebies. That thing was like watching her. So she went on in the house and locked the door. And she went to her room. And she got to her room. Her plan was to do some studying for that night. Because, like I said, her finals were coming up. And she was trying to cram as much as she could. So she settled in for the night and was going to, stay up till 3 or 4 in the morning and then catch up on sleep later on in the afternoon. But she was going to stay up late while everything was quiet and all that and do her studying. And so she had her books and all that out. Now, in Sally's room were two big windows that looked on the outside. And these windows had what we call half curtains, like, there was a curtain rod, and then on the higher curtain rod, but it had just sort of fringe curtains hanging across the top. And so the window was open until it got to the second rod down below it. You got what I mean here? That's the way the curtains were on this room. So she's sitting there reading her books, going through her studies, and the hair on the back of her neck starts raising up. She gets that feeling again. She got on the porch earlier that night. Something like was watching her, you know. It gave her, she was getting the heebie-jeebies real bad. And said, "There's something watching me." So she looks up, and there's a shadow at the window. Now, what's so startling about this is the house that Sally was in, the windows were 8 foot off the ground. The bottom of the window was probably about 8 foot off the ground. Think about this a minute, folks. Okay. Something is standing, she said, "What is that? Is that the shadow of the barn or something?" She's trying to figure it out. What is that? So she's watching, and all of a sudden the shadow moves. And the shadow goes to the other window down next to it and just stands there. That's when she sees the two red amber eyes looking in the window at her. Well, she immediately freezes. What the heck is this? What is that? And so she's looking at this thing, and it's looking back at her very intently. And that's when it dawns on her, that thing has to be at least 8 foot tall, staring in the window like that at her. 8 or 9 feet tall. It had to be. So Sally gets up and goes over to look out the window, but then the shadow's gone. The eyes and the shadow are gone. And she looks out, but she doesn't see anything. But she thinks she saw a big shadow moving, but she wasn't quite sure about it. But she went back to the books and sat down and tried to shake them out. She said it was something else. Maybe it was, I don't know, a bird or something. She don't know what it was. She's trying to write it off and said, "Well, I got to get back to the study." And so she gets back and she tries to settle in, tries to concentrate on the books. But that feeling comes back again. And the hair on the back of her neck raises up. And she looks up, and sure enough, the shadow is back, and the eyes are out there again, staring at her. Well, this is enough. She's had enough of this, So she says, heck, she gets her books and all that. Her mom and dad's still asleep. She gets her books, picks up her notebook and all that, and she goes, "I'm going to the kitchen." She goes to the kitchen, and turns the light on in the kitchen, sits down at the kitchen table and puts her books out and everything. Said, "I'm going to stay in here till, time for me to go to bed." She really didn't even want to go back to the bedroom, okay, because the thing was standing in the window with the eyes looking at her. She was freaked out by this, but trying to keep herself calm. So she went back and was sitting in the kitchen trying to get back to the books. Feeling comes back again, and this time she looks over to the kitchen windows, and it's back. The shadow is back there again. Well, this really freaks her out. So she gets, "I've had enough." She said that, "Daddy, there's something outside the house. There's something outside, because I've seen his shadow several times, and I've seen some eyes in the windows." And he said, well, he said, "Let me get my shotgun." So he gets his shotgun and his flashlight, and he got his pants on fine. He gets his shotgun and flashlight, goes outside, looks around, comes back in a few minutes. Said, "I didn't see anything, Sally. There's nothing out there." But she said, "I saw something, Daddy. I'm sorry." She said, he said, "Well, just trying to, it's time to knock off the books now, go to bed and get you some sleep. We'll talk about it tomorrow. Well, tomorrow came, of course, and they didn't really ever get around to talking about it again. So, a few nights pass, nothing else happens. A couple of nights pass. And she decides to do some more studying into the night again. But this time, she says, "I'm going to the living room. I'm going to get on the couch in the living room, and study there. The bedrooms, bedroom's still freaking her out. It gave her the creeps every time she thought about it. Even when she went in there to sleep at night, was there something staring at her in the window? And for the last couple of nights, she slept on the sofa in the living room. She was getting freaked out by this big time. But like I said, nothing had happened in 2 days, so she felt pretty good about the living room. So she lays everything out in the living room. Same thing goes on again. She's studying, looking at the books, trying to get some studying done, writing down some stuff that she needs to know. All of a sudden, that feeling comes back again, and this time there's a noise with it. There's a scratching like at the front door, and then she hears like a scratching still continuing going around the side of the house till it gets to the living room window. Now the living room window was closed and it had some blinds closed. The blinds that you wind up and down. It had some white blinds and it was closed. But behind the blinds, and there was like an outside light, she could see that shadow again. And she could see it. It was on the porch this time because it had to be on the porch the way the house was situated. And it was looming up large against this window. Well, this really freaked her out. But she said, if I call my dad again, it was like 2 o'clock in the morning. This thing is stalking me. But if I call my dad, he's going to freak out again. So she just gave up studying for that night, curled up on the sofa, and finally went to sleep. Next morning, she told her boyfriend Jake about it. Well, Jake she said, you know, if I tell you about it, Jake, you're just going to laugh at me. He promised he wouldn't laugh. But he did a little bit when she told him what was happening. And he said, well, what do you think it is then? And she said, he says, a big dog or something? And she said, I feel like it's some kind of werewolf or something. That really made him kind of laugh. And she kind of got mad at him about it. But he promised, he said, look, we'll check it out. We'll find out what's really going on. She said, well, let me come to your house tonight, Jake, and study at your house. I got the finals are tomorrow, tomorrow night. I need to study tonight and get some more studying in. Can I come to your house and, study tonight? He said, sure. My folks, my mom and dad, they're gone out of town. It'd be just me and you. And you'll have I'll watch over you and make sure nobody bothers you, So that was the arrangement. So that night when she got to Jake's house, she didn't get there till about dark. Now, Jake, he lived sort of in an isolated farm, too, but it was even a little more isolated than Sally's farm, mom's and dad's farm was. And so she got to the house and they started studying. And she laid her books out on there in the kitchen. She's sitting in the kitchen in Jake's house. And they were sitting there talking a little bit, and she was looking at the books, going through them, telling what she was going to get to study and all that. And she got some good studying done that night for about a couple of hours. She really hit the books and got some stuff knocked out. She felt like she was almost ready for the finals. She was getting there finally, and she was happy that it was going on. And all of a sudden Jake come in the room and he said, Sally, I don't want you to freak out, but there's something outside. And I said, oh my God, it's followed me here. He said, no, I said, don't worry. He said, we're not going outside. We're not going to open any doors. But he said, I've been looking out the window. There's something moving around out there. Well, about that time while they're talking, Sally gets that creepy feeling again. The hairs on the back of the neck and raise up. And she turns around and looks, and out the kitchen window, there's those two big red eyes looking at her again. But this time, because of the way his house is, there's a light shining on the porch, the side of the house there where the kitchen is. She can see this thing clearly, and honest to God, it is a werewolf-looking thing. It is a horrible, monstrous-looking thing. Its head is very broad. It looks like it has shoulders that a linebacker would be happy with. This thing is huge, and it's staring right back at her, looking directly and intently at Sally. The boyfriend, he can see it, and it scares the crap out of him. He almost pees his pants while he's standing there. Get away from that window. That thing could come through that window very easy. And she said, well, where are we going to go? He said, there's one good place we can go. Let's go to the bathroom. So he takes her to the bathroom in the middle of the house, almost middle of the house. One wall of the bathroom was on the outside of the house. But there are no windows in the bathroom. That's the good thing. So they go in there and they lock the door. They barricade the doors. And he tells her, if we can just stay in here for 3 more hours, the sun will be up, the sun will come up. So they're in there talking. They can hear this thing walking around the house outside. And every now and then it bumps and hits the house. Boom, boom. And this thing is very malevolent in the way it's stalking them, especially her. So all of a sudden, everything goes quiet. And they're sitting there holding each other, listening, and realizing there's only a thin outside wall between them and the bathroom and the thing outside. And that's when they hear scratching on that wall on the outside. And they hear this thing begin to scream and howl and holler out there in the dark. Enraged with fury, like it begins to hit the house. And they can hear it hit the wall on the outside of the house, and it almost shakes the house. And this thing is screaming, and it's the weirdest kind of a scream of rage they've ever heard. Well, meanwhile, the neighbor next door, who's a good ways away, hears this, and he knows that Sally and Jake are there alone, because Jake had told him what his plans were going to be for the evening with his girlfriend. He said, my God, what's he doing to her? Is he killing her or something? So he calls the cops. And said, look, I think a murder's taking place. He gives them the address and all that. And meanwhile, back at the house, this thing is beginning to tear at the wall on the outside and howling and screaming. And it hits the house every now and then. And they're sitting there huddled together knowing that if that thing cuts through that wall, it's over for them. And they're gone, because this thing is something beyond human or animal. This thing is something beyond nature. It's a supernatural thing out there. How can you stop something supernatural like that? You got to know how to do it, and they didn't know. They had no idea what to do next except just stay there and pray. And all of a sudden, they could hear this thing tearing the wall out little by little, and it's enraged outside. But far off, they hear some sirens coming. They hear sirens, and that thing hears the sirens. And when it hits the wall one more time and takes off, the cops get there. Jake goes and opens the door, lets them in. He tells them what's happened. They want to know what's going on out here, And he tells them it's nothing like murder or anything like that. But this thing, he tells them about this thing. So honest to God, is trying to tear the house down to get to us. So they go around to the back side of the house where the wall of the bathroom is, and they look, and that whole wall is almost torn out. The siding is laying on the ground. There's a timber laying there. Some of the one tube of 4 laying out that's been broken in half. There's only a thin little piece of particle board left between that and the inside of the bathroom. And the cops look at this and said, my God, I've never seen anything like that before in my life. And they could see the claw marks on the side of the house. And the cop says, look, I don't even know how to write this up. What am I going to say? And the girl says, honest to God, officer, it was a werewolf. That's the only thing I can tell you what it was. And he said, well, I don't even know how to write this up. Said, if between you and me, let's just forget this happened, okay? So the cops leave. And Sally and Jake are left there staring at each other, It's dawn now. Dawn comes. So Sally says, I got to go. I got to go get to the school and got to do the finals, So they pack up and head for the school. And Jake sits out in the parking lot while she takes the finals. Sally gets back. She says, I don't even remember taking them. I hope to God I passed, because I don't even remember. I'm so shook up. No sleep or anything. I hope I passed them. I don't even remember them. So out in the parking lot, they decide to not tell anybody about what happened. They said nobody will ever believe us. They're going to think we're a bunch of crazy people who are on drugs or we made it all up. And when we won't, they promised to each other that no matter what happens, they wouldn't going to tell anybody the story of what took place that night. Well, as time went on, she passed. She passed the finals and became a nurse. They married, but things were never quite the same between them from that night onward. They held this secret between them for one reason. They had a child as the years went on. But Jake began to drink. He began to drink a lot, got depressed, went from one job to another. Finally, he and Sally divorced because he frankly told Sally, he said, ever since that night that happened, I've had to just drug myself with drink and pass out to keep from thinking about that thing that almost ate us alive. Said it's ruined my life, and it ruined Sally's too, to a certain degree, definitely, because to this day, whenever she hears any kind of a sound or growl of some sort, whatever the situation, even if it's a movie or whatever, the hairs on the back of her neck stand up again. And she remembers that night, that awful night, when her life changed forever for the worse. And that's the end of this story. But that illustrates the point of how even cryptids encounters with them like this can definitely change your life for the worse. I've been telling people for years the wall is to keep people out, to keep people in. And definitely to keep an eye werewolves that done. But that's the story, absolutely, of how things can affect you if you let them. Once you touch the darkness, my friends, or once the darkness touches you, good or bad, you will never be the same again. That's just the way it does you because you're a human being. You understand? That's the way it affects you. And it affected them very badly. It ruined their lives. But that's the way these things can do. And they can harm us that way. And these things can be an attack on just not your body and your mind, but on your very soul as well, and your spirit. I call it a gut punch to the spirit sometimes. That's what happens. We talked about that when I had Jessica on the other night. You can experience these things and you get that feeling you've been gut punched by these things sometimes. And it can make you a little bit shy to things like that. But I have seen a lot of experiences where people have encountered things that affected them health wise too. By the way, it can affect you that way as well. Absolutely. But we have to. I think a lot of times that's where faith comes in. Faith can strengthen us in many ways to take some of this stuff better than we could without the faith. That's why faith, I think, is very important in certain circumstances for our own well-being, our own not only our physical well-being and mental well-being, but our spiritual well-being as well. Absolutely. But anyway, I was going to tell you this too. If you ever have experiences like that, try not to let them affect you so very badly and not let them ruin your life. But I actually was going to tell the story tonight about how and when I encountered the men in black and what they did to me. They almost cost me my life, but I'll make it very brief. But I had been on a radio show with Lon Strickler. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he does a show called, or did a show called Phantoms and Monsters. And I've been a guest on there many times. And on one of his shows, I foolishly made a joke about something I should probably not have joked about. But we were talking about the men in black. And I mentioned something on the show. I said, well, if the men in black are out there watching this show, come see me. I want to talk to you. Well, I was just joking about it. But a few weeks later, I got the answer to that challenge. And I had stopped at a convenience store nearby where I live and was buying a Coke, to drink or something. It was kind of a hot evening summer evening, and I had parked my truck on the side of the sidewalk there, and not in the parking lot. This was a huge parking lot. Okay, I want to stress this. It was about, it was way. You could put a football and a half field in this parking lot. It was a huge parking lot, and I went in and bought my Coke and was coming out and was getting ready to go back to my truck when I noticed sitting in a parking spot a little ways over from where I was at was a big black Cadillac. Now this was a older Cadillac. I like to look at old cars. And I noticed it right off. I said, "My God, looks like it just pulled out of a showroom. It looks so such well immaculate condition, like it was brand new." And this was probably like a 62 or 63 caddy sitting there, you know. And so I was looking at that, and I noticed who was sitting in the caddy were two men, and they had on, from what I could see, white shirts, black ties, and black suits. They had on sunglasses. I can't remember if they had hats on. I don't think they did, but they were wearing sunglasses, and this is almost dark now, okay? And we're sitting there wearing sunglasses, and the inside of the car had a weird purplish glow to it. Like, I'm going to say, but it wasn't real bright, but it was kind of semi bright. Glow, purple, weird looking. I want to say this alien looking kind of a glow to it on the inside of the car, like the dashboard was lit up or something. I don't know. And they were sitting there staring at me. They were looking very intently at me. Now, I was close enough to hit this car with a rock, very close, And I'm going, what the heck? This is a classic image of the men in black sitting here in front of me, I said I couldn't believe it, and they were just sitting there looking at me, and they had no expressions on their faces, but they looked just like the men in black you always hear about. They looked sort of oriental a little bit, from what I could tell of them. But like I say, I wasn't right smack up on the car, so I can't tell you. But I'm just telling you what I could see. And they were sitting there wearing these sunglasses with the black suits on, staring at me. And I said, I gotta take a picture of this. Nobody's ever gonna believe it. I gotta get a picture of this. But doggone, I left my phone in the car, in the truck. So I went over there and I opened the truck up. And by the time I opened the truck up and opened the door, I look up and the Cadillac has slowly began to back out of the parking space. Well, I said, heck, I got to grab my phone. I couldn't get a picture of this. And about the time I opened the door a little bit wider and look again, the car is gone. And there's no way humanly possible in the world that car could have gotten out of that parking lot. There's no way. It was a big, huge parking lot. They didn't burn rubber leaving out of there. If they'd left out that fast, it would have had to been a rocket car, okay? I mean, it was just gone. It was there 1 second, and the next minute it was gone. I jump in my truck. I start riding around. I rode around 2 hours looking for this car. Where could they have gone? I talked to my friend, Nick Redfern, about this incident. He put it in his book. Matter of fact, he talks about in his book, The Men in Black. And he gave my name in the book. So I am mentioned in Nick Redfern's book, okay? And we talk about this, and he said, Dennis, he said, I believe without a doubt they meant for you. They wanted you to see them. They were sending you a message. Here we are, and we can touch you anytime we want. And I said, Nick, I have to agree with you on that. I believe that's what was going on. I believe it was a warning, telling me, hey, we can reach out and touch you anytime we want. Well, about a week later, same day, about a week later, I started getting sick early in the morning. It was on Saturday. I remember well. Saturday, by about 12 noon Saturday, I'm starting getting sick. I'm starting feeling queasy and all that. Whole week goes by like this. I get worse and worse. In the morning, I'm a little bit better. By afternoon, by evening, I'm bad at work again. I'm dying, folks. Actually, I'm dying. I didn't know it. I didn't really realize how bad off I was. I thought it was something I could shake off. But it kept getting worse and worse. I was going down in a quicksand, Finally, I ended up going to the doctor, and the doctor looked at me and said, you know what? You're 2 hours away from death. 2 hours, you won't be here. And the nurse said, last time I took somebody's blood pressure like you got, they were dead. So they immediately put me in the hospital. I was in the hospital for 3 days. Finally, I got better. Almost died. And I've always connected that with the incident that happened to me a week before. I always, out of doubt, will feel that I got some kind of a weird supernatural fallout from that incident. What do you guys think? I've always felt that. And I've always felt that it was a warning to me in many ways. Be very careful what you're dealing with here. You can look at the darkness, but don't forget the darkness sometimes will look back. But that's my own story about what happened with that. How you can deal, and things can happen like that. Weird things can take place. It's very strange. Very strange. Yeah, it's very much like food poisoning, but it was not like that. In some ways, it's kind of like that, but I got dehydrated to the point they took 6-liter bags, 1-liter bags of fluid to put back in my body. I was near death. I saw the angel of death, by the way. I had that experience. I have to talk about that one night. I was actually laying in the bed in there, and in this room that I'm in, the angel of death appeared. And I saw it. Please trust me, you don't ever want to see that. Trust me, you don't ever want to see it. But I saw it. It wasn't hallucination. I wasn't dreaming. It was the real thing. I was at myself. Believe me, folks, I'm one of the most practical people that walks this earth. I don't go with hallucinations and visions and all that. When I tell you something happened, it really, honest to God, happened. It's nothing like drugs or anything like that involved in it. When I tell you the truth, something like that happened, it happened, and believe me, it happened. I saw it without a doubt. It was the real deal. And I even tested myself while I was there and watching that to make sure I was seeing what I was seeing. It was something. It wasn't the actual image of it that was frightening. It was the way it made you feel that was so unsettling. It was so otherworldly, something that actually did not belong here in this world with you, that gave you this feeling that I cannot describe. It was a feeling of dread. And I'm not talking about fear, but dread, almost a very dire, depressing, dark kind of feeling, That's what it felt like. As for what it looked like a shadow, a undulating type shadow with ribbons on it that were moving constantly in a wind that was not blowing in the south. It was just like something that you would take out of one dimension and put in another dimension. That's the only way I can describe it. It just did not belong here, but yet it was here. And I saw it, without a doubt. Yes, it is very bad feeling, very dark and downright drastic kind of a feeling to it. It's hard to describe. Yeah, it took about 6 bags, so that's tough to get me back. But that's what the doctor told me. He said my body was shutting down, my kidney function had stopped. I was 2 hours, slightly 2 hours away from death. I think I was closer than that. Felt like it. Anyway. Nope, that's true. But be careful sometimes and not challenge some of these things. I learned that the hard way too. Some things you might not better joke about. Some things you might better take seriously. And I think that was their warning to me. We're here and we can touch you anytime we want. And without a doubt, whatever they really truly are, and I have my own thoughts on that. I believe they're downright demonic in my book, but I think this is just an image that they're using. The demonic is very good at using imagery. Don't ever forget that. Evil is all about image, folks. It is. It's all about image. And it's very good at using images against you. Don't ever forget that. And that's what it does. And I have had other instances where I have met the demonic face to face. And believe me, you don't really want to know what they look like either. Trust me. It's one of the most horrible images you can imagine. It would, I told this to somebody after experiencing what I experienced. I am surprised that my hair did not turn white overnight. It is a horrific thing to see, and you do not want to go there. Trust me, you do not want to go. I've been there, and I'll tell you this: you don't want to go there, no matter what. But sleep privation form say torture, you can literally die from it. It only takes 11 days. Oh yeah, you can start hallucinating in certain instances of that. But I can tell you this: in my life, I have never actually had one single hallucination. I've always been about myself. I don't do drugs. I don't do alcohol. I don't get drunk, bummed out of my mind, or get high on pot, or do anything like that. I don't do that. That's just me. I don't do that stuff. And I like to stay at my own self and know what I'm thinking, know what I'm doing, know what I'm experiencing. Believe me, I found a lot of drunks under viaducts and stuff with frost that's falling on them that we had to bring in. I don't want to ever be in that situation. I feel sorry for anybody it is because they don't really realize what they're doing to themselves in some ways. But you don't ever want to be not at yourself and know what's really going on around you. I want to always be in touch with reality. You know what I'm saying? I don't like it any other way. That's just me now. So other people look at things differently. I have done some of it in the past, but I do not do it now. I've never done it that on a regular basis. I've never been into that. I've never been inclined to do that. For one thing, I may have an addictive nature, so I'm probably one person that definitely doesn't need to do that. It was a nursing assistant at nursing home. I'll tell you what, I worked at a hospital for 30 years, and that is one of the most haunted places you could ever get in. Trust me. There's weird stuff goes on in hospitals. They are among the most haunted locations in the world. But I'll have to tell you sometime about some of the experiences I've had there. I worked there for almost 30 years. So I saw a lot. I even investigated a haunted ambulance one time. Had a lot of nurses tell me about their stories and stuff. So I know a lot of things that went on there. Creepy place too. Being out of control myself. Well, like I say, I've always want to be in touch and know what's going on. That's just the way my mind works. I got to be in touch with reality. I got to know. That's just even when I was a little kid. I talked about that. Being a monster kid, I loved monster movies. I loved monster writing, reading ghost stories. I loved all that stuff. But teacher would get on to me about that. Doesn't this give you nightmares and all that? And I would say something very interesting. Even as a little bitty child, I knew that this was not real. I mean, this stuff was made up. But then as a child, you believe in monsters to a certain degree. I grew up to find out that monsters are real, okay? Monsters really are real. I'm going to tell you one more story tonight before I turn you loose about a monster hunt that I went on. And I may be telling some more about this later on our Monday show with Gerald on the road, Let's Travel. One time with two Cherokee buddies of mine, I went on the trail of the Wampus Cat in Cherokee, North Carolina, the mountains of North Carolina. We were trailing this thing. We thought was what we thought was the Wampus Cat. We found out somewhat different later. But the hunt went on into nightfall, and we had on headlamps, and we were going through the woods, and we were trying to track this thing. Now, if you are familiar with the Wampus Cat, it is basically supposed to be like a monster mountain lion, but it has one extraordinary difference about it. It has 6 legs and not 4 legs. It has 6 legs on it, supposedly. Um, Dr. Carroll, did you learn your lesson not to say for them to reach out and touch you? Well, yeah, I learned the lessons from that, definitely. I don't joke about the men in black anymore. Definitely not. It'd be kind of crazy for me to keep daring them to do something, wouldn't it? Since I know they can. But it was just very, if it was not connected, it was a very strange coincidence. But I'm gonna share something with you guys. I don't believe in coincidence that much anymore. Trust me, I've seen too much. I live in Louisville, Louisiana. That was the name of the football team, the Wampus Cats. Yeah. Well, Wampus Cats is a very interesting thing, very mythical type thing. But I wanted to find this thing. If it had 6 legs, we were trailing something. And I kept telling these Cherokees, guys, I kept telling them, I said, this thing does not have 6 legs. It's supposed to have 6 legs, okay? And I can tell what we were tracking, definitely. And here's the weird thing about it. Towards nightfall, we come up on this place where we could really see the tracks good. Tracking is a hard thing to do when the ground is kind of hard or got a lot of leaf structure to it or a lot of overgrown stuff. You want to find a good, I like to call them mud tracks, but it can be on a riverbank. It can be anything like that. You want to find a good defined track, And we finally come up on some, and it's nightfall. And here's the interesting thing. I'm coming to the end of the story here, okay? We saw something. We were trailing something, and we could see it, but we can never get a good look at it. It was very evasive through the woods. We were trailing this thing. Finally, I said, we got some tracks, okay? So we get down, I look at these tracks, and they are huge wolf tracks, like. They look like dog tracks. Well, the first thing I say is this a dog, But they were huge, bigger than a regular dog tracks. They were like huge wolf tracks. That's what the Indians with me said. This is a wolf. And here's the weird thing: as we followed these tracks, instead of 4 tracks, this thing started having 2 tracks, as if it were what? Walking on its hind legs. It went from 4 legs to 2 legs while we're following along this trail. And the Indians look at me and I look at them and they said, okay, that's the end of the hunt. We're leaving. We're going home. This is a daggum werewolf we got here. And that's the end. I said, I have to agree with you. It's not a wampus cat. That's definitely not that. And I said, if this is not a werewolf, it'll do till the real thing comes along. And that's the end. I said, well, that's it. We're going home. We're not tracking anymore. Let's go. Come on, let's get out of here. And we left immediately. I didn't want to leave. I wanted to keep hunting, but they would leave. They were my guides, so I had to go with them. But anyway, I left with them, and that's the end of the story. We were tracking the wampus cat. We ended up looking for a werewolf. That's my story. But anyway, there you go. That's another case history. But anyway, I will not hold you up any longer. I hope you enjoyed tonight's show, and that you take away some good stuff from it. Like I said, you always want to take something good or learn a lesson or learn something new. Dangerous planet Earth is now, very dangerous, and we need to be very careful how we deal with these things and how they affect us and how they deal with us. So, but if Bigfoot steals your lunch, definitely call me and let me know about that, okay? And but don't let things affect you too badly. No matter what the situation, don't get too scared, don't get too frightened. Remember, there's always somebody in your corner. I'm one of them that you can call on, and if you need to just even talk about it. Sometimes it helps when you talk to somebody about something. It gets it out of your mind. It gets it, discussed between somebody else. It does you a world of good to have that done. Absolutely. But anyway, I'm going to turn you all loose tonight, and I want to thank you all so much for being here. And I appreciate your support and financial and otherwise. It is greatly, greatly appreciated. I thank you so much for that. And please check out my good friend Gerald's show, Midwest Night Watchers, his channel. Go show his channel some love. And check out his movie channel. And maybe he'll have the Abominable Snowman on there. That's the movie I was going to talk about tonight. You want to check that one out from the 1950s. That's a great movie with Forrest Tucker and Peter Cushing, believe it or not. Both of them together. And it is a great thing on the trail of the Yeti in the Himalayas. Boy, it's a good movie. So check it out if you get a chance. Maybe Gerald will have that on his program, on his show one night if you can find him a copy of it. I want to thank all the mods out there. Definitely, you're doing a great job out there, and I appreciate all that you do. Absolutely. And also, don't forget, Gerald's got the Night Owl Lounge and Piercing the Veil. So check him out and be looking for us Monday evening at 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Hunting the Shadows YouTube podcast channel, and we will both travel down the road less traveled. We will journey down the road less traveled and want you to go with us. We're definitely going to have some fun with that. And next Wednesday night at 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Hunting the Shadows. And a week from tonight, Paranormal Point of View at 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Also, please check out our friend, Jessica Jones, the Cryptid Huntress. Please show her channel some love. And she has a store, War Woman Goods. Midwest Night Watchers has a store. Please check it out. And I want to thank everybody who part of the network here with Hunting the Shadows. That includes Beyond the Box and our good friend BIGFOOT Dwarf and Squatch and Holler. I'm going to be on there very soon. Think that I like those cult cinema channel. They play the old spooky movies. Oh yeah, that's good. They got the old movies the best, folks. Absolutely. In my book, anyway, they are the best. Also, I want to say I'm also reviewing, and I will talk about that more next week. I'm going through the old Poltergeist, the Legacy TV show, which I never saw at the beginning, and I've been binge watching it. Okay, so I'll let you know some more about that next week as well, and I'll do some critique on that. I got a T-shirt from Midwest Night Watchers. All right, I got one too. Yep, I got one with the owl on it. That's the one I got. But anyway, I appreciate you all so much for being here tonight. And don't forget, I will also be appearing on Aquarius Rising with Chantel Mayberg. We got rescheduled from last week. It will be on next Thursday at 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll be talking about the ancients of evil. Believe me, you want to hear about this one, okay? You do not want to miss the Agents of Evil, okay? And we'll be talking about that. And also, we'll be again appearing very soon on Tea Time with the Duchess. Danielle Diva Borazon. Check that out. Also, had a great show with the Night Watch. Did a great show with him. Check that out if you get a chance. He is on YouTube, the Night Watch. And we did a great show with him. We had a fantastic time with him. And so check it out if you get a chance as well. Well, I appreciate you all for being here tonight. And thank you so much for tuning in and being part of the family and for your support. And for all that you do for this channel, I greatly appreciate it. I hope you have a fantastic weekend and an even better week next week ahead. We'll be looking forward to that until we get together again, my friends. Take care of yourselves. Keep your head on swivel and the eyes on your six. Remember, non tempo mala, fear no evil. Let's be smart and not scared, okay? That's the way to go. That's the way we want to roll. So take care of yourselves out there. Godspeed, my friends. Bon chance to you, bon ami. And until we get together again, Ciao.
I woke in a room cold as the tomb. Ghosts whispered secrets of doom. Eyes wide open, felt the gloom.